The winter wind howled through the Colorado mountains like a wounded animal, carrying with it the bitter cold of 1883 and the even colder reality of Eleanor Hartwell's situation. She stood on the porch of her dilapidated cabin, her thin shawl doing little against the elements, watching as the last of her firewood burned low. 3 months had passed since consumption had stolen her husband Samuel, leaving her alone with 2 young daughters and a debt she could never repay. The knock came at dusk, 3 heavy thuds that shook the warped wooden door. Eleanor knew who it was before she opened it. Silas Kane stood there, massive and imposing, his shadow swallowing the threshold. He was a mountain of a man, weathered by years of trapping and hunting in the unforgiving wilderness, with a beard like iron wire and eyes that seemed to have forgotten how to smile. "Mrs. Hartwell," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Your time's up." Eleanor's hands trembled as she clutched the door frame. "Mr. Kane, please. Just another month. The spring thaw will come, and I can work the land, sell the... I've heard your excuses." He pulled a worn paper from his coat, the loan agreement Samuel had signed before his death. "Your husband borrowed $200. With interest, you owe me $300 now. You got nothing to give me. No money, no livestock, nothing." Behind Eleanor, 7-year-old Mary and 5-year-old Ruth huddled together, their faces pale with hunger and fear. They'd been surviving on watered-down soup and stale bread for weeks. Eleanor had already sold everything of value, her wedding ring, Samuel's pocket watch, even the good quilts her mother had made. "What do you want from me?" Eleanor whispered, though she feared she already knew the answer. She'd heard stories about Cain, about women who'd fallen into his debt and disappeared into his mountain cabin, never quite the same when they emerged, if they emerged at all. Cain's jaw tightened. He looked past Eleanor at the children, then back at her. "Your body is mine until I have my sons." The words hit Eleanor like a physical blow. She staggered backward, bile rising in her throat. You can't mean. I'm 42 years old, Mrs. Hartwell. Never had a woman who'd stay with me, never had children to carry on my name. You owe me a debt you can't pay. This is how you'll pay it." His voice was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing a business transaction. "You'll come to my cabin. You'll keep my house, cook my meals, and you'll give me sons. When I have 2 healthy boys, the debt is paid. You and your daughters can go free." Eleanor felt the world spinning. She'd heard of such arrangements in the frontier, women traded like property, their bodies bartered for survival. But hearing it spoken so plainly, directed at her. "And if I refuse?" Cain's expression didn't change. "Then I take this cabin. It's collateral on the loan. You and those girls will be on the street in the dead of winter. How long do you think you'll last?" Eleanor looked back at Mary and Ruth, their thin faces watching her with complete trust, believing their mother could fix anything. She thought of Samuel, of the life they'd planned, of the dreams that had died with him in that blood-soaked bed. She thought of her own parents, buried in graves back east, and how they'd raised her to be strong, to survive no matter what. "How do I know you'll keep your word?" she asked quietly. "I'm a lot of things, Mrs. Hartwell, but I'm not a liar. 2 sons, and you're free. I'll put it in writing." The journey to Cain's cabin took 4 hours through treacherous mountain passes. Eleanor rode behind him on his massive horse, clutching Mary and Ruth, while their few remaining possessions trailed behind on a pack mule. The cabin, when they finally reached it, was larger than Eleanor expected, a solid log structure with a stone chimney and glass windows, built into the mountainside like a fortress. Inside, it was surprisingly clean but utterly masculine, animal pelts on the walls, a gun rack by the door, simple furniture built from rough-hewn timber. There was a large main room with a stone fireplace, a separate bedroom, and a small loft where Cain said the girls could sleep. "The rules," Cain said, standing by the fire while Eleanor and her daughters huddled together. "You keep the house clean. You cook 3 meals a day. You don't leave without my permission. You do what I say, when I say it. In return, you and your girls get food, shelter, and safety. When you've given me 2 sons, you get your freedom and $100 to start fresh." Eleanor wanted to scream, to rage, to fight. Instead, she nodded, her face a careful mask. "And my daughters? They stay out of my way. I won't harm them, but I won't coddle them either. This is a working household." That first night, Eleanor lay awake in Cain's bed, her body rigid with fear and revulsion, while her daughters slept in the loft above. She waited for Cain to claim what he believed he'd bought, to force himself upon her. But he never came to the bedroom. Instead, he slept on a pallet by the fire in the main room. Days turned into weeks, and a strange routine developed. Eleanor cooked meals from the well-stocked larder. Cain was clearly a successful trapper. She cleaned the cabin, mended his clothes, and tended to her daughters. Cain left early each morning to check his trap lines and returned at dusk with game or furs. He spoke little, ate in silence, and continued to sleep by the fire. Eleanor was confused and wary. Why wasn't he demanding what he'd said he'd bought? Was he waiting for something? Building her trust before he struck. She remained vigilant, a knife hidden beneath her pillow, ready to fight if necessary. One morning, about 6 weeks into their arrangement, Eleanor was preparing breakfast when Mary cried out from the loft. "Mama! Ruth is burning up." Eleanor flew up the ladder to find Ruth feverish and shaking, her skin hot to the touch. Scarlet fever, Eleanor recognized it immediately. The same disease had swept through their town the previous year, killing 3 children. Cain was at the door, preparing to leave for the day. Eleanor rushed to him, her fear overriding her pride. "Ruth is sick. Scarlet fever, I think. I need medicine, a doctor." Cain's expression shifted, something flickering in those hard eyes. Without a word, he grabbed his coat and disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. He was gone for 2 days. During that time, Eleanor fought for Ruth's life with the desperation of a mother who'd already lost too much. She cooled the fever with snow water, forced willow bark tea down Ruth's throat, and prayed with an intensity that surprised her. She hadn't prayed since Samuel died. Cain returned on the 3rd day, snow-covered and exhausted, carrying a leather bag. Inside were medicines, genuine medicines from a real doctor, expensive and rare in these mountains. He must have ridden hard to the nearest town and back. "The doctor told me how much and when," Cain said gruffly, handing Eleanor a piece of paper with instructions. "Thank you," Eleanor whispered, genuine gratitude breaking through her resentment. "Thank you." Cain nodded and walked away, but Eleanor had seen something in his face, concern, perhaps even fear. This hard mountain man had ridden through a blizzard to save a child who wasn't his, a child belonging to a woman he was essentially holding prisoner. 3 months later, Maya stood in the office of Thornton Ranch, looking at spreadsheets that actually made sense for the first time in her life. James had hired her not out of charity but because she'd proved herself sharp with numbers and sharper with people. She'd started as an administrative assistant, but within weeks, she was coordinating the ranch's community outreach programs, managing schedules, and discovering she had a talent for organization she'd never had the opportunity to develop. Her grandmother's medicine was purchased and consistent. The mortgage was current. Maya had bought a car that didn't require prayers and mechanical expertise to start each morning. But more than the financial stability, Maya felt something shifting inside herself, the constant clench of anxiety loosening, the perpetual exhaustion lifting like morning fog. She'd also met James's daughters, 16-year-old Sophie and 14-year-old Claire, who visited the ranch on weekends. They were good kids, still grieving their mother in quiet ways, still learning who they were becoming. Maya saw in them the girl she'd been before life had gotten hard, and something protective stirred in her heart. One Saturday afternoon, Maya found James in the barn, mending a fence rail with his own hands despite employing a dozen ranch hands who could have done the work. She'd learned this about him: he was wealthy, but he never forgot the work that built the wealth. "I've been thinking about Patricia," Maya said, leaning against a stall door. "About what she did with your kindness." James looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Yeah. I want to start something. A fund, maybe, or a program. For people like I was, working themselves to death at minimum wage jobs, trying to care for sick family members, stuck in a cycle they can't break out of because breaking out requires resources they don't have." Maya's words tumbled out in a rush, the idea that had been forming for weeks finally crystallizing. "I know I don't have much yet, but I can start small. Maybe one person at a time, like you did for me." James smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling. "I was hoping you'd say something like that. Come with me." He led her to the ranch house, a sprawling structure that managed to feel homey despite its size, and into his study. There, on a shelf between photos of his daughters and his late wife, sat a large glass jar filled with folded pieces of paper. "The sugar jar," Maya breathed. "Every person I've helped in the last 10 years, James said, pulling the jar down carefully. 63 people, Maya. 63 notes. And you know what the beautiful thing is? About half of them have come back to tell me how they've helped someone else. Patricia's wasn't unique. Kindness really does multiply." He handed her a folder from his desk. "This is a proposal for the Thornton Foundation. I've been working on it for a while, but I was waiting for the right person to help me run it. Someone who knows what it's like to need help. Someone who understands dignity and desperation. Someone like you." Maya opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a complete business plan for a charitable foundation focused on providing emergency financial assistance to working families in crisis. The initial funding, $2 million. "James, I don't have experience with this kind of thing." "Neither did I when I started," James interrupted gently. "But I learned. And you'll learn. And more importantly, you'll do it with heart, which is more valuable than any MBA." He paused, his voice softening. "You don't have to say yes right now. Think about it. But Maya, I've watched you these past 3 months. You're not just good at this work. You're exceptional. And you have something I can never have. You remember what it felt like to be on the other side of that counter, hoping for a miracle." That night, Maya sat with her grandmother at the kitchen table, the same table where she'd opened that life-changing envelope. Elena's health had improved remarkably with proper medication and regular doctor visits, the constant pain easing from her eyes. "Nai, Maya said, using the Mandarin word for grandmother, "do you remember when you used to tell me that we didn't need much, just enough?" Elena smiled, her weathered hand covering Maya's smooth one. "I remember. It's what my mother told me. I think I'm learning that enough isn't just about having what you need. It's about being able to give what others need." Maya pulled out the sugar jar proposal. "Someone gave me more than enough. Now I want to help make sure other people have enough too." Elena's eyes filled with tears, but they were joyful tears, proud tears. "This is what I came to America for," she whispered. "Not for money. For this, the chance to help, to build something good, to make the world sweeter. You do this, Bao Bao. You make the world sweeter." Spring came to the ranch with an explosion of wildflowers and new beginnings. Elena's art career was blossoming, she'd been featured in a regional magazine, had regular buyers, and was teaching workshops in Billings. Marcus had started a small construction business, helping neighbors with repairs and renovations. The ranch was thriving. Then Derek Hutchins came back. Marcus was in the barn when he heard Elena scream. He ran toward the house, his heart in his throat, and found Hutchins on the porch, blocking Elena's path. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never faced real consequences. "You think you can just ignore me?" Hutchins was saying. "This is my territory, girl. Everything here belongs to me eventually. Including. Get away from her." Marcus's voice was cold steel. Hutchins turned, sizing Marcus up with contempt. "Who the hell are you? I'm the person who owns this property. And you're trespassing. You're that idiot who bought this dump for $1. Hutchins laughed. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. This land should be mine. I have plans for it, and neither you nor this little." Marcus moved before he could finish the sentence, positioning himself between Hutchins and Elena. "You need to leave. Now. And if you ever come near Elena again, I'll press charges for assault and harassment. I've already documented everything." Something dangerous flickered in Hutchins's eyes. "You threatening me, boy? I'm making you a promise." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I've got a lawyer on speed dial, the county sheriff on my side, and enough evidence to bury you. Your reputation in this community. It'll be dust." For the first time, Hutchins looked uncertain. He glanced at Elena, then back at Marcus, clearly calculating whether this confrontation was worth the risk. "This isn't over," he said finally, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes," Marcus said quietly. "It is." They watched him drive away, taillights disappearing down the dirt road. Elena was shaking, and Marcus pulled her into his arms. "You're safe," he murmured into her hair. "I promise. You're safe." She pulled back to look at him, and there were tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. "You stood up for me. Nobody's ever." "Elena, I would do anything for you." The words came out before he could stop them, raw and true. "These past months, living here, getting to know you, you've changed everything. You made me believe in fresh starts, in kindness, in the possibility that broken things could be beautiful again. You did that for me too," she whispered. "When you bought this ranch for $1, you bought me a future. You bought me hope." They stood there on the porch where Marcus had first arrived, where this unlikely journey had begun. The sunset painted the mountains gold and crimson, the same colors Elena had tried to teach him to see, the same beauty her grandfather had found in this harsh, gorgeous landscape. "I love you," Marcus said, because there was no point in holding back anymore. "I know it's fast, I know we're both scared, but I love you." Elena's smile could have lit the entire valley. "I love you too. From that first day when you could have thrown me out but chose kindness instead. You didn't just save this house, Marcus. You saved me." The kiss was gentle, full of promise and healing and the quiet courage of two people choosing to trust again. 6 months later, the ranch was unrecognizable. Elena's art studio in the barn had become a destination, with visitors coming from across the state to see her work. Marcus's construction business had grown, and he was hiring workers from the community. They'd restored the ranch house completely, honoring Anton's craftsmanship while making it their own. On their wedding day, held in the meadow behind the house, Elena stood in a simple white dress and spoke her vows with tears of joy. "You bought this place for $1, she said, "but what you really bought was destiny. You gave me a home when I had nothing, believed in me when nobody else would, and taught me that sometimes the best deals in life don't make sense on paper, they make sense in the heart." Marcus slipped the ring on her finger, thinking about that cold November day when he'd walked through that broken door expecting nothing and found everything. "The best $1 I ever spent," he said, and everyone laughed through their tears. That evening, as the celebration continued around them, Marcus and Elena stood on the newly rebuilt porch, watching the sun set over their land. Elena had just finished a new painting, a portrait of them both, standing in front of the ranch house, surrounded by wildflowers and possibility. "What are you going to call it?" Marcus asked. Elena thought for a moment, then smiled. "Home found. Because that's what we gave each other, isn't it? Not just a place, but a reason to believe that tomorrow can be better than yesterday." Marcus pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, the mountain air, the promise of their shared future. He thought about all the pain that had led him here, the divorce, the loss, the desperate need for a new beginning. He thought about Elena's suffering, her courage, the way she transformed tragedy into art. Sometimes, he realized, the universe brings you exactly what you need when you need it most. Sometimes a dollar ranch isn't just a deal, it's destiny. And sometimes the most profound act of love is simply choosing to stay, to believe, to offer someone a chance when the world has offered them nothing but doors slammed shut. "Thank you," Elena whispered against his chest. "For seeing me when I was invisible. For staying when you could have walked away." "Thank you," Marcus replied, "for teaching me that broken things can be beautiful. That starting over isn't giving up, it's choosing hope." They stood there as darkness fell and stars emerged, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, bound not by what they'd lost but by what they'd chosen to build together. The ranch house glowed warm behind them, no longer a symbol of abandonment but of renewal, proof that sometimes the smallest investment, $1, one act of kindness, one moment of choosing compassion over convenience, can change everything. And as the Montana night wrapped around them like a blessing, they knew with absolute certainty that they were home.